Have you ever had the feeling that your life was moving in one direction, but your heart was taking you in a much different direction? Maybe you feel like it's pulling you somewhere else. You know what matters and you know what brings you peace. You even might have an awareness of what God is gently showing you, what He's been teaching you, the things He's been just working out in your life. But somehow your daily life doesn't quite reflect that. That, I think, is a place that many of us find ourselves in from time to time. Last month, we talked about awareness. Awareness is having the ability to notice and to see the things that maybe we didn't even realize were off, feeling like something is off, but then giving it a name. It's just bringing ourselves back into that place where we are in touch and we are staying curious about what's going on. This month, we're going to talk about something new. We're going to talk about what it means to come back into agreement with yourself. It's not by working harder. It's not by striving to do more. It's just returning to that place that we already know to be true. Those places in our lives where we know the truth and we've just kind of gotten off course a little bit. So, in the last month, when we talked about awareness, we talked about what it means to feel off. We talked about internal contradiction. We talked about the cost of always being strong. And we talked about awareness without judgment. And because it was the mid year, we took a special kind of detour and we did a little mid year reflection on noticing what drains us, which I think is a beautiful segue into the topic of today and the topic of this month, which is realignment. Because awareness isn't really the destination. We can become aware of something, but if we don't do anything about it, then, you know, I can be aware of the fact that I have green sneakers on and I'm wearing, a pink outfit. But if I really wanted to go make my outfit look better, maybe I go put some white sandals on instead. It's noticing. That's a crude example, but you get my point. If we're just aware and we don't do anything about it, it really doesn't change anything. It's never the destination. Awareness is just preparation. It's like cultivating those things within us to be able to take the next steps because we can't align with what we don't even realize is out of place until we recognize something and become aware of it. There's nothing to do about it. So today we're going to take that next step. It's not about fixing, it's about returning. And so in returning and rest, you'll be saved. I love Isaiah 15:30-15. In returning and rest, you'll be saved. In quietness and trust is your strength. I love that verse. It's become a life verse for me in this last season that I've been in. It just blesses me every time. It just kind of floats around in my spirit. And I even wrote a little tune to go with it so that I could remember it. So, in returning and rest, you will be saved. So, the first thing I'd like to just mention is that we've had this awareness. And again, we can't do anything. We can't, if we don't do anything about it, it's just a noticing. So, we have this awareness and then realignment. It begins with that first honest yes. Like, I remember looking in the mirror in over the last year, and there was this one day I looked in the mirror and I just said to myself, Teresa, you are responsible for where you're at right now. And it was not in a way that was self-deprecating. It wasn't meant to be a shame-filled statement. That's not where I was coming from. It was simply meant to be an honest look and an ownership, taking ownership. So we often think that when we, change or decide that we want to do something, it creates this tenseness inside of us. It's like, oh, we have to do something dramatic. We have to do this, big, broad stroke with the paintbrush, but really sometimes it's just those little fine strokes, those little changes that we need to do. Because most lasting change, truthfully, honestly, it comes with something much smaller. When I was first starting in nursing school, I would get the syllabus for the whole semester, and I would look at all the assignments and I would look at all that was required of me, and I would just get so overwhelmed. And my mom used to say to me, Teresa, you cannot eat the elephant all in one bite. It just made me laugh because I was like, you're right. You're right. I just need to take it one assignment at a time, one day at a time. And so sometimes lasting change just starts with one honest conversation, one healthy boundary. It might start with you making a decision that reflects your values instead of just kind of going along for the ride. It may be that moment of really tuning in and listening to yourself rather than overriding that still small voice or that little inner check in your heart. Because again, alignment isn't about taking giant leaps. It's built through little small acts of integrity. When we say yes to ourselves or no to ourselves, and then we show up and we stick to our yes or we stick to our no, that builds integrity and trust with ourselves. And then we know that as we begin to do that little by little, then we know that we can count on ourselves and we know that we can trust ourselves to listen and to pay attention. As a functional medicine provider, I see this all the time. People come to me with all these vast array of symptoms, and we kind of have to tease it out and figure out what's going on. But when I put together a care plan for somebody, when we come up with what we're going to do to help treat the issue, it's not just take this, do this. It's a lot of little tiny things that I ask people to do. I might ask them to change their diet a little bit. I might ask them to pay attention to the moving throughout the day or breathing. I might ask them to take some supplements, but it's rarely just one thing. It's many small, consistent changes over time that begin to really heal their body and turn things around from a physical standpoint. And our emotional and our spiritual lives are much the same way, very much the same way. We have to think of our physical health or think of our mental and emotional health and even our spiritual health in the same way that we think of our physical health. We have to nurture it. We have to take those little baby steps and do things one at a time to be able to create a new scenario and to begin to restore and bring healing to our hearts and to our minds and our emotions. The other thing that comes to mind with coming into alignment is that internal agreement creates peace. So think about it. When my kids were little, they would come to me and they would ask me something. And if I knew the answer, I would give it to them right away. I would say yes or I would say no. But if I wasn't sure, I would say, I'll think about it or maybe, because I wanted my yes to be yes and I wanted my no to be no. Well, think about what it would have been for them if I had said no, but then turned around because they kept bugging me and said, get caved in and said yes, or the other way around. What if I had said yes and then I changed my mind and said no? They wouldn't trust me and they wouldn't trust my yes or trust my no very much if I kept doing that over and over, except that that's what we do ourselves all the time. That internal contradiction creates this tension inside of us. And when we begin to do things that create agreement and internal agreement with ourselves, it just allows our hearts to be able to breathe and it creates that that peace. It means that we're no longer fighting ourselves, right? We don't need to fight our values. We don't need to fight our choices. We don't need to fight the things that we find important and that we want to prioritize. We don't need to fight our calendar. Definitely don't want to do that one. And, most importantly, we don't want to fight our relationships. And that could be relationships with other people, but relationships with ourselves. Everything begins moving in the same direction. What we agree to in our hearts and we begin walking out in our daily lives, they're not in this like tug of war with each other anymore. There's no tension. There's this congruency that begins to occur, and there's integrity and there's trust. That's alignment. That's what we're talking about. And, it'd be nice if we could just have it be a once and done thing, but that actually isn't the way that it is, right? Alignment, again, if awareness wasn't the destination, either is alignment. It's something that we have to return to again and again and again. Life changes, the seasons change, we drift, we become distracted. We say yes when we want to say no, or we say no when we really could have said yes. We lose sight then of what matters. And so returning is part of the journey. I was thinking about this as an illustration that just really, we're taking that little step off course can really become something that's more noticeable. Think about it like this. Imagine you're driving down the highway. You're going 55 miles an hour and you think that the road is straight. Well, if you were to just take 1 degree, go 1 degree off course from your intended destination, maybe you wouldn't notice that. You probably wouldn't notice the difference at all. You wouldn't know. Instead of going in a straight line, I'm going 1 degree off, right? But after an hour, if I'm going 50 miles an hour, say just for round math, 60 miles an hour, if I'm going 60 miles an hour down a highway, I think it's perfectly straight, headed where I'm supposed to be headed, and I make a 1 degree change in my direction over the course of the hour, then I would be almost a mile from where I intended to be. Well, what if I did that for 10 hours? Now, well, gee whiz, now I'm 10 miles away from where I thought I was going to be instead of, 10 hours time. I'm 10 miles away from where I thought was going to be, just in a 1 degree difference. That was, this course correction that I did not make. So the problem isn't that the original mistake was enormous. It's that continued traveling without taking time to check my direction, check the GPS, check the direction my car is going. That's not the original issue. Was not as big as the fact that I didn't check and I didn't make the course correction, because the course correction doesn't mean that I failed. It means that I noticed, right? We've been talking about noticing. It means that I noticed where my present trajectory was taking me, and then choosing to come back into alignment, choosing to redirect, choosing to realign. So a course correction then, it isn't necessarily a sharp turn. It's simply noticing that 1 degree of misalignment. If taken that note, if done early enough and noticing soon enough, can really then make that small adjustment. It could save me so much trouble, right? I won't end up with a 10-mile gap from where I wanted to go to where I'm headed. And in our life, as we do that, it's the same thing. So then maybe we start to ask ourselves questions like, does this thing that I'm going to do, does this decision that I'm going to make, does it reflect who I'm becoming? Does this choice, does this yes, this does the relationship, does the hobby, whatever, does it align with the things that I value? Does it create that peace, or does it put pressure? Is it even mine to carry? That's a big one. Sometimes, gosh, we just pick up things that aren't even ours and we just continue to throw things in the backpack and pretty soon before we notice everything in the backpack or most everything in the backpack isn't even ours. It's so easy to slide into that. So, what can we do to stay in alignment or to begin to notice and come back into alignment to make that little course correction? What if it's declining one commitment that doesn't really fit who you are anymore? What if it's protecting 1 hour of quiet every week? Now, for me, it's more than an hour. It's an entire day. My Saturday is my Sabbath, hands down, no holds bar. Nobody's getting into that space because it's so precious to me. How about if it's going to bed, going to bed and turning the lights off, stop flipping on your phone, doing all that doom scrolling? What if it's just turning that off when you say that you're going to? So if you set 10 o'clock as your bedtime, you start to wind down, say 8:30, 9 o'clock, and by 10 o'clock, you are honest with yourself and you turn off the light. What if it's choosing nourishment over convenience? I travel a lot. It is so easy to get that burger and fries or that bag of chips or whatever, as opposed to looking on the menu and seeing if there's a salad or seeing if there's something that would give me more life in the food that I put into my body rather than simply being convenient. What if it's praying before we make a decision? That's a big one. Sometimes we just skip right past it. We don't even bother to pray when we have those decisions that we have to make. How about leaving margin in your schedule? What if we leave a little bit of cushion room so that, you know, if we have all these things that we want to do, we still have a little bit of cushion and margin that we don't have to run from task to task to task. And then what about letting one small choice reflect our deepest values? Again, it could be saying something yes to a request that we genuinely want to do, or it could be saying no to something that we might have said yes to just because we could. Doesn't mean that we necessarily should. So returning to alignment doesn't require perfection. It requires being honest with yourself. And honesty is something that builds trust. You don't have to overhaul your entire life this week. You just have to start with the small choices. Those small decisions, they really do matter. Tiny, tiny course corrections over time, they change our destination. So don't underestimate the power of one aligned choice. So, where do you already know what needs to be changed? What's one area in your life that no longer reflects your values? Start asking these questions. I'm going to ask them. I want you to think about them now in the first person. Where do I already know what needs to change? What's one area that no longer reflects my values? What's one small step that can bring me back into alignment? Where do I already sense God's invitation in this area of my life? And remember, alignment isn't about getting everything figured out all at once. It's about taking the next faithful step. If you're just joining us, I would love to invite you to download the alignment check. It's a simple reflection tool designed to help you identify where your life feels aligned or maybe where it doesn't feel aligned. And maybe where you're ready to take that one small step back into agreement with yourself. You'll find the link below. So you don't have to become someone new. You don't have to earn your way back. You simply have to return. Return to what you've already discovered. Return to your values and to your peace. Return to the rhythms in your life. Return to those rhythms that bring you life. Return to God who has been patiently waiting for you all along, because alignment isn't about creating a different person. It's about living as the person that you were created to be. I hope this blessed you this week. And I will see you next week as we continue learning what it looks like to live from internal agreement rather than internal contradiction. I'll see you next week.